Welcome back. So we're talking about today the God-man water trough reflection. And so we're talking about how to fix this part of your heart or your garden so you can start reflecting and it will shoot out positive affirmations. So we want to talk about how to get there. We left off talking about the body and the soul. We talked about the mind, will, and we talked about seeing, hearing, tasting, and feeling. And we talked about the mind, the will, and the emotion. Now we're going to talk about the conscience. It's very important because a lot of when you go to a psychologist, they tell you about the person's mind, the person's retarded. God can fix anything and anybody. But first, it has to fix the heart. So one thing, after fasting 40 days and really seeking the face of God, I learned about broken-hearted people. So when I start off with this third chamber of the conscience, before we get to the Holy Spirit, I want to talk about the person before they get saved. So the person before the person gets saved, over here, this third chamber is very important because it's not springing healing, is springing brokenness. And women are very good for this. They can remember their anniversary 1900 years ago when the husband didn't bring them flowers, when the husband didn't bring them candy. And these two people could be 5 million years old and the woman will remember it. You remember in BC 69, you didn't bring me no flowers, and the guy saying, wow, baby, you still remember that? Well, the wife, she will remember it, right? So again, and then if he becomes a wife beater and a cheater and running around, well, again, she stores this in the third chamber of brokenness. So what happens over this third well, he gets a scale. Now remember, this person ain't saved. So that's why it's so hard to reach people, because they got a scale over their heart. That's Acts chapter 9. The Bible said when Zechariah came and prayed for Paul, a scale fell off his eyes. He was a murderer. And if you trace that back to the Hebrew, because Saul was a soulish man. Saul didn't have the Holy Spirit until God blinded him in the road to Damascus in Acts chapter 9. So when God blinded him, he blinded the fifth chamber so he could recover him. So your fifth chamber also works here with the eye gate, so the Holy Spirit comes in now, blinds Paul, watch this, the guy gets blind, and then recovery starts shooting out. What did recovery start shooting out with? To obey God. So you can't get a person to obey God until you take the scale off their heart. So if a person is broken and bitter, you need to comfort them with your well of healing, so it will get down in their ear gate, right here. I'm going to put some big ears on this guy. Like my ears, right? Got big ears, right? And the Holy Spirit gets down in that ears and says, you know, God can heal you. God can help you forgive that person. No, I can never forgive my mom. I can never forgive my sister. Oh, she slept with my husband. Oh, I can never forgive my brother. He molested me. Oh my God. See, down here, see, that's that brokenness coming out. So when brokenness comes out, it works over here and it blinds you. It blinds you. You can't see. You're blinded with rage. Oh my God. See, then you get bruised, you get offended. Every time somebody asks you something, oh, shut up, blah, 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 because you get offended. You can't celebrate. You cannot celebrate that hurt. Why? Because you got a scale. You're blinded. So the fifth chamber cannot produce recovery. The sixth chamber cannot produce liberation and celebration. Why? Because it's capped off. Have you ever seen a well that's capped off producing oil? Absolutely nothing. So in Matthew chapter 25, they give you a parable, Jesus, about 10 virgins. Now, the word virgin in the Greek means holiness, righteousness. So when you look at this parable, it tells you about the way God invented women to be. Women are the example of God. And so Jesus gives this beautiful parable out of 10 beautiful virgin women that were never touched by God or anybody. And then God touches a woman in Luke chapter 1. There was a virgin named Mary. Now, Mary never had a man. You can't have a baby without a man. But watch this, according to Luke 1, Mary has a baby without a man. Why? Because all of these chambers were open. Mary wasn't rejected. Because God even sent an angel to her husband, right? Let's go read it. Luke chapter 1. God sends an angel because her husband rejected her when she got pregnant. So pretty soon, her seventh chamber, her seventh well would have got a scale on it. It would have been shut down. Watch. She would have been afraid to go out into the city because her husband wasn't covering her. So she would have been stoned because the law says if you have sex without a husband, you shall be stoned. So God had to send an angel. I feel the Holy Spirit is so powerful. God had to send an angel to speak to Joseph so Joseph would receive her. Because Joseph was shutting down his seventh chamber and getting hard on it. Oh my God, I had a virgin all of a sudden. Now she's pregnant. He's going into rage. Because that's what rejection, resentment does. It makes you go into rage and it puts a scale over your eye. So God sends an angel to tell you, no, the woman has received the Holy Spirit. Luke 1:48, it said the Holy Spirit shall come upon you and the Holy Spirit will overtake you. Now let's go back to Matthew 25 and it talks about 10 virgins. And the virgins, the Bible said 5 were wise and 5 were foolish. Then it gives a parable about a lamp. So it's kind of confusing, but then the Holy Spirit showed me where the lamp is. The lamp are these 7 wells. So 5 of the wise virgins had their wells, their lamps turned on. So the oil was pouring out because it says in Luke 4:18, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me. So when the Spirit is on you, the oil comes out. What is the oil? Hebrews 11:1. You love righteousness and hate iniquity. Therefore God, even your God, has anointed thee with the oil of gladness above all your fellows. You can expect God to show up like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Why? Because it's a fountain. John 5, in you will be a fountain springing up into everlasting life. You won't have bitterness springing up. Why? Because God will heal you. And he will take away the fear, the voice of fear, the poorness of fear, the brokenness of fear, the captivity of fear, the blindness of fear, the bruise of fear, the memory of the fear of the bruise, the rejection of fear. Oh my God, I'm almost... Oh, praise God. I love this. I love talking about Jesus. Boy, God did some great things to me. I want you to go to the website, godmantv.com, or call us at 619-266-4000. 619-266-4000.